certifications in the IT industry are huge. Like
Yeah.
they're massive. I think it is the number one industry, I believe, that has all of those certifications. So, unlike
Yeah.
fields where you've got a university degree and that's the only standard, IT relies heavily on certifications to provide that standardized stamp of approval for those specific technical skills. Something that I've always been told is if you've got those certifications, you'll get the interview, but the experience will get you the job. Obviously, a lot of it is you as a person as well, but you need to have both.
Welcome to Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast, where we tackle all sorts of great topics in the areas of recruitment, job searching, mindset, technology, marketing, culture, and lots more. It's amazing what you'll pick up. Thanks for joining me. Well, welcome everyone. Darren Saul here, your host of Saul Searching, the Saul Recruitment Podcast. Happy New Year to everybody. It's 2026. I can't believe it. The first show for the year. And I have the amazing Aaron Spiteri in the house. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good, Darren. Happy New Year. Good to be here.
Happy New Year. Can you believe it? It's 2026.
I mean, I can't believe it. I feel like last year went really quick, to be fair. So, I mean, we're already
Definitely.
here.
It goes faster every year. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It does feel like that.
But you had a nice Christmas time, New Year time?
Yeah, had a really good Christmas and New Year's. Got to stay local here in Newcastle, which was great. So, yeah, really enjoyed that. Family came our way, which was nice. And yeah, we had a great time. It was awesome.
Excellent. Me too. And as I was just saying, too much drinking and eating. So back time to detox.
Yeah, that's right.
But for everyone out there, we're going to kick off the year with a great topic. It's episode 72, and the topic is IT certs made simple, smarter ways to pick and prep for IT certifications, because this is an interesting topic that everybody always loves to discuss. And as a recruiter, I can't tell you how many times people have come to me and said, oh, what certs should I get? Which ones do I need before I start looking for work? Which ones can I get while I'm working? Which ones do employers want? How much should I spend? Is it better than experience? So this goes on and on and on. So we're going to unpack all of this stuff today. And before I do, I'm just going to give everybody a little bit of a rundown into who Aaron is. So my guest today, the fantastic Aaron Spiteri, is a highly accomplished director-level leader defined by his ability to build, stabilize, and scale high-value commercial functions in the cybersecurity and managed services space. He began his journey getting his hands dirty on the service desk and quickly advanced through key operational roles like IT manager, service desk manager, project manager, and director of customer success, grounding him in IT governance and ISO implementation. Aaron now works for a highly reputable managed service provider and is extremely passionate about IT certification. So welcome to the first show of the year.
Thanks for having me, Darren. Appreciate
Pleasure,
it.
man. But why don't we take a little walk through your background and give everybody a little bit of a rundown into who you are and what you've been up to in your career so far.
Love it. All right. Well, yeah, for anyone that doesn't know me, yeah, my name is Aaron. I've had several different types of roles in IT. I've always loved computers from a young age, and that got me really interested in IT and where I could go with that. I think it was Windows 3.1 was what I was using at the time, and then pulling apart an Osborne computer that my parents purchased
Oh,
for
wow.
quite a lot of money from Harvey Norman at the time. Yeah, that was where it all started. So I was really interested in that. I also, as well, I will be honest with you, I dropped out in year 10. So I didn't enjoy school at the time
Okay.
and I didn't want to continue with school. And yeah, that was a really difficult thing. My parents were obviously pushing me to continue on. And I actually dropped out and went straight to TAFE and started
Wow.
doing IT straight away. So, I mean, I'll
Amazing.
talk to you about my journey and you'll see how I've gone, but I did not go the path of doing university, and I'm obviously in the IT field.
Amazing. Well,
But
that's amazing, even just as a great example of what you've achieved and how people can achieve to such a great level without finishing school or going to uni. So that kind of just disrupts that whole conversation of the fact that you have to go to uni and you have to finish school, and it really is up to you.
Yeah, it totally is, right? So I think that's just an important lesson that you can do anything, whichever path you take. I think that's really important. That's what I want to emphasize there. But yeah, for me, I left in year 10 and then I went straight to TAFE. And going into TAFE, I started and did a certificate four in IT, and that was systems administration. And
Nice.
then I did a diploma in IT in technical support. So I started by doing the TAFE route. And yeah, when I did that TAFE route, that's really where I got a lot more hands-on skills. So one of the really good things about TAFE was it was all practical, it was all hands-on. And that was around 2 years of full-time study that I did at TAFE to get those certifications.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
perfect. Perfect actually for an IT technical degree as well, because you want to be hands on.
Yeah, and that's what was really good. Like it was everything. It was pulling apart computers. It was all the networking. It was all the
Yeah.
hardware, software. It was all of it because, this, well, we're talking years ago, like this was in the early 2000s, I've completed TAFE.
Yeah.
So back then, it was really important that you were able to pull apart computers, hands on with your networking, your hands on with your software. Very different then what I learned to how IT is right now. But yeah, really important to obviously get those fundamental skills. So when I finished TAFE, they actually were looking for staff at the Telstra Big Pond dial-up call center, funny enough.
Oh, there you go.
And they were, yeah, I heard through TAFE at the time that if you wanted to get a job, that's your best bet to start in IT. And yeah, I mean, that was my understanding. You really needed to start at the very bottom. And that's how you got your hands dirty. That's how you got into it. And that's where you went, right? So that was, yeah, during the dial-up era. And I had to work graveyard shifts. So that was pretty uncomfortable for me, to be honest with you, because that was working through the night and then coming home in the morning where people would normally be waking up. I was coming home to go to sleep. So, and that was all to help people with dial up internet. So, I mean, it wasn't glamorous, but it was really important because that's how I got a lot of my fundamental like troubleshooting experience, right? Because you're speaking to people on the phone, it's all different types of people. And back then, you've got to understand as well 56K, you can't be on the phone as you're speaking to me. So it's either
Yeah, that's
me
right.
calling you back on a mobile phone
Oh
or,
my
a
God.
bit of
Yeah.
back and forth. And there's no
You
chat,
couldn't
by the
you
way,
couldn't
back
just
then.
remote desktop in or do, things like they do now.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was very different. So there was a lot of just, I couldn't see anything other than just talking to the person,
Yeah,
asking those questions, which is why it's so important when you're troubleshooting to follow through with all those questions, right? So
definitely.
I learned a lot of skill doing that. And then I also learned a lot of skill in terms of someone listening to every single one of my calls. So all
Wow.
of my calls were recorded. Supervisor would sit next to you, listen to everything you said. If you missed something that would affect your KPIs, that
Right.
could affect you getting your paid bonuses. So it was quite strict, to be honest. I don't know if I mean, I don't really remember if I really enjoyed it. I don't feel like I did because that was very different to what I thought IT was.
Yeah.
But I just got told you have to do this and get experience in order to go where you want to go. So I feel like it was difficult for me at my age back then to continue to want to do that when I probably just wanted to pull apart computers, play games, set up networks, all that
That's
sort of
right.
stuff. And I was in a call center at the time.
That's right. So
So
that's a really good point as well, because a lot of people in IT, they do their study and they think they can just jump into any role without any background or without earning their stripes. So it's a really good example of you have to sometimes do the groundwork, you have to do the hard work, earn your stripes a little bit before you can open yourself up to some of those opportunities. So it takes a bit of time sometimes. It's a journey.
yeah, I genuinely agree with that. And I'm happy that I went that path and I got my hands dirty. It was uncomfortable and I worked in a difficult situation to
Yeah.
learn as much as I could to help me to go to the next level. That helped me with my growth. That's how I
Amazing.
started. And then, yeah, predominantly moving on from there, I had various different roles, but it was predominantly moving from that call center into a little bit of MSP work. So that was helping a lot of that sort of jumped from helping just someone with 56K internet that wasn't working and troubleshooting that to now working at an MSP and troubleshooting anything. So that could be
Yeah.
network, hardware, software. That really blew my mind because that was also level one again. So that was learning a lot. And again, really important to do a job like that because you're going to learn so much really quickly. So
Yeah.
I did a lot of that. I, funny enough, did a bit of a pivot and I really liked TAFE, if that sort of didn't come across. And I kept communicating with some of the teachers and ended up getting a role as an IT trainer as well. So
Oh, wow.
doing some IT training as a teacher because I had my Cert 4 and my diploma. You needed to also have a Cert 4 in training and assessment. So I went and did another certificate
Oh my
so that
God.
I could then train people through TAFE and at a private college. So I did a little bit of that as well. And that was still very much focused on IT. And
Yep.
then I, funny enough, landed a job at TAFE doing all their IT. So at the time I was at the Northern Sydney Institute of TAFE here in New South Wales. And yeah, looking after one of their campuses and doing a load of their IT, which was really amazing because that was then setting up all of the different classrooms, the network, hardware, software, all of that. So
Perfect.
yeah, moved on from there and did a vast variety of different roles and finding myself in a really good, reputable MSP at the moment, which I'm really excited for. And yeah, growing my career there in terms of focusing on supporting this business to essentially grow and scale. So a different challenge for me now, which is really
Yeah.
good, but still in that IT realm, which I
Yeah.
really appreciate.
I love that. And like what I still keep grabbing onto is the fact that those initial hard years or there's an initial time where you did a lot of work at the call center and the graveyard shift, but doing it the hard way without any dial up or without any very sophisticated internet. That really harnessed and solidified your communication skills and the way that you deal with people and the way you listen and your empathy. And that's obviously what's allowed you to progress so well in your career. So doing the hard yards up front and earning your stripes and learning from the ground up can be the most incredible opportunity if you embrace it and not think, oh, this is beneath me or it's boring or it's not what I thought it was going to be.
I agree. I do feel like it paid off for me and it did help. I will say in IT, one thing that's really important is your troubleshooting. That is a
Mm,
key fundamental skill you need to have. And I felt like that really helped me solidify that. And that was just the
love that.
path that I took.
Love it. And so let's talk a bit about certification. So throughout the years, tell us a bit more about the certs that you've done and how you might have gone about choosing those certs and why, and just a bit more, get a little bit more insight into certification.
I'll start off with how I even understood certification. When I was finishing my diploma in IT at the time, right? I was cheering, I was really excited. And I thought, yeah, I'm out of here. Now I get to go work in IT. And the teacher at the time said, hey, Aaron, if you really want to get ahead, what you need to do is something called a CCNA.
Right?
And
Nice.
I thought, what is this? Why do I really need to get something else? Because I've just finished TAFE.
Yeah.
Why do I really need to go and get something else? And they said, if you go and get that, that's going to put you ahead of the game. So, for anyone that doesn't know, a CCNA is called a Cisco Certified Network Administrator, right? So, that's still an existing
Yep.
certification that you can get. But back when I was doing it, that was really sought after because networking was
Yeah.
really sought after. So there was a lot of networking roles, and that's why they recommended that to me specifically. And that's when I first heard about a certificate, and I just was a bit thrown back that there was even more things that you had to do. It
Yeah.
sort of started there, and then I would say once I got into IT and I started working in IT, what naturally happened was when I started looking for different roles or you're looking to upskill or internally, my manager at the time, I've had various managers, but they would have said to me, there's a course that you can do to upskill. Would you like to go through this? And
Yep.
at the time, you're thinking, oh, that's nice. Like, where's this going to go? Is there a reason that I need to do it? But all of those certifications are super important because it does really help you in terms of where you want to go, right? And for anyone that doesn't know, certifications in the IT industry are huge. Like
Yeah.
they're massive. I think it is the number one industry, I believe, that has all of those certifications. So, unlike
Wow.
fields where you've got a university degree and that's the only standard, IT relies heavily on certifications to
Yep.
provide that standardized stamp of approval for those specific technical skills.
Love
So, something that I've always been told is if you've got those certifications, you'll get the interview, but the experience will get you the job. Obviously, a lot of it is you as a person as well, but you need to have both. IT is not an industry that you just get a job, you've got your certification, you leave it, do nothing, and you just stay in IT forever. I mean, you
Definitely.
can definitely do that, but that might not take you further than you want to go. But
Yeah.
if you just want to do what you're doing, you might last doing that for quite a while. But if you want to keep moving on with IT, keep learning more, it is actually really important to get those certifications because the industry changes so much, technology changes so much. You got to understand when I was at TAFE, we had floppy disks, we had hard disks that were spinning.
Yeah.
Obviously, you
Yeah.
still have those now, but everything now is solid state. You don't even use floppy disks. We don't even use really CDs anymore. It's all either
That's right.
USBs. So it's changed a lot even since I went to TAFE. But yeah, I'm just trying to make a point that IT changes so much. So it is actually really important to keep relevant and up to date by upskilling yourself with these
Yeah.
certifications.
And the interesting point is that you just made, even if you've done the CCNA, after a certain amount of time, you've got to do it again
Yeah,
because it becomes redundant.
yeah, that's yeah, yeah. So you're not wrong. So with all of the certifications that you can look at, something that's really important that you need to be aware of is yeah, they can become redundant. CCNA is obviously still good, but
Yes. Yeah.
CCNA now is a different version. So we're at a different
Definitely.
version that you would have had to have update yourself with. And probably a good example, like I did CompTIA Security Plus, and I think at the
Yeah. That's
time
still a big one.
I think I did V4,
Yeah.
whereas I think now it might be up to, don't quote me on the latest version, but it's changed. It's on a
Yeah.
new version. You have to keep upskilling yourself or using your CPE credits in
Mhm.
order to get to that next level, which is really important as well. So your CPE credits, if you're not familiar with that is, or if anyone isn't aware of what I'm talking about, that's your continuing professional education credits. So as we talk today, any of the certificates that we talk about or certifications, you actually need to maintain those. So you just said that they can become obsolete or redundant, for instance. I just recently did one called CISM, right?
Huh.
And
Yep.
that's through ISACA. So for me to continue to keep that for the next 3 years, I actually have to make sure that I hit a certain amount of CPE points in
Ah,
order to make sure that at the 3 year mark, I will pay a fee, show my CPE credits, and then they will allow me to renew my certification because
oh,
it's still
wow.
relevant, right?
I didn't know
But
that that's how it works. I thought you just
yeah,
did these certs and then after a certain amount of time, you might have to just do them again or whatever.
no. So with some of these, you do get your CPE points, right? And you need to essentially hit those requirements every year. So for ISACA, CISM, that's 120 CPE points that I need to have over a 3 year period of time, right?
Right. Great. Okay.
So for me to make sure that I hit that, I really need to make sure that I stay up to date and attend if it's webinars
Yeah.
or go to those group sessions, anything like that to make sure that I can then demonstrate that I'm still relevant. And they do a lot of those events that you need to get involved in.
Yeah.
But if you don't do that and you get to the 3 year mark, then what's going to happen is that certification will actually expire.
Yep.
And and if it expires and you don't need it, but you did it at a point in time, that's okay. Because realistically, I have lots of certifications. And I'll be honest, I don't keep them all up to date because
Sure.
that is also a cost to me because I have to pay for all of these to
Yep.
stay relevant and up to date.
Yep. It's a
And I
cost
need
in
to
time
have
and money.
that. And I also have to stay relevant in that area, right?
Mm.
So, for instance, CCNA is all in networking, right?
Yeah.
I don't in my career do anything with networking anymore. So, for
Yep.
me to keep CCNA, that doesn't seem like a smart idea to me because
Yep.
I would just be paying for that. I would need to get my CPE credits for it. And to be fair, they're going to potentially ask me for the experience that I've got
Yeah.
in networking, of which in my current role, I don't do anything with networking. So it's not really relevant to me anymore. So when you get to that point, I feel like it's okay to just call a spade. You've done the certification, but
Yes.
to still show that you've done it because you achieved it and you did work hard to get that. but it just might not be a living, breathing, up to date certification that you have.
That's right.
Whereas because I put a lot of time and effort into CISM, that's relevant to me in the cyber industry, and I've got a lot of experience with that's relevant to me. I'm going to put in a lot of effort to make sure that I keep maintaining that
Yep.
because at the 3 year mark, I don't really want to go and pay to do the exam again and
Exactly.
then start all over again. Whereas if I can maintain it, it's a lot easier for me in the long run.
Yeah,
Does that sort
that's
of
a really
help
good,
explain that?
that's a really good point. So I think it's really important to know not only which ones to choose, but also which ones to maintain. So that's a really good point and good understanding and insight into that as well. And again, as you said, it costs time, it costs money. You can't maintain everything. But the beautiful thing is that even though you have it on your resume and it might have been an older version, it still means that you did it. You have some knowledge in that area and that it shows some kind of commitment as well to self-study, which is important.
Yeah, it really demonstrates that, right? And I think for anyone listening to this, you need to understand you've obviously got your experience, which is your work experience, which is you're going to get on the job by
Yeah,
taking any of the different tasks you get from your manager or your team. And experience is so important. So do anything that you can,
yeah,
learn as much as you can, right? Because that's priceless. But when you're in that field and you really know what you're doing, for instance, if it's cybersecurity, you're heavily in cybersecurity, then that's where you really need to think about, hey, I'm good at cybersecurity. I've got all this work experience, which is great. But if you want to speak to someone such as Darren, and then you're looking at
yeah,
helping one of your clients to fill a role in cyber and they're looking for someone that's a specific cybersecurity manager, they might by default always want that CISM or CISSP. And even though you've got heaps of experience, just by not demonstrating that you've also got that certificate, it does put you behind because a lot of people will just put that on and say, hey, as a standard baseline, we really need someone that can demonstrate that they've gone through CISM. And then showing that demonstrates that, yeah, you've put the time and effort into studying that, you understand it, you passed the exam, and you're on the same wavelength as to what they're looking for. There's obviously a lot of other things to it. The certificate's just one thing, but
definitely.
it's certificate and experience, I would say, go hand in hand. They're very important.
100%. And I wanted to just piggyback off that. And because people ask me all the time, so Darren, what should I do? Should I do these certs? Should I not do these certs? And it really is, again, there's so many factors involved. But for me, I would always say, as you said, you can't beat the combination of both. Experience and certs is a winner. But if you don't have a lot of time and a lot of money, experience is amazing. And even if you can get experience for free initially, just to get some kind of experience, that's powerful. And if you want to do some certs that maybe are free certs or some kind of non, it might not be the signature standard in terms of that cert, but it's some kind of free course that you found on Udemy or Udemy generally you have to pay, but there's some other sites where you can get free stuff or other people that are doing free courses that shows a level of commitment. And I think that's the one thing that a lot of people forget is that when you're looking for a particular role, whether it's getting into the industry or trying to move within the industry to a different area, you have to show that you're serious. And sometimes when you do some kind of study, whatever it may be, it shows that you've dedicated your time and energy because you are serious about that and you're not just pulling it out of the air and you think, oh, it might just be great because people told you you can make a lot of money doing that. So I think there's a combination of many factors to consider. So it's do things to the best of your ability. If you can afford to do some certs, basic level certs, otherwise do some free ones, get some experience, even if it's for free. And then a lot of the time your managers and your employers will allow you and give you time and incentivize you to do certs along the way when you're already employed. So you don't have to do everything before you start, but think about how it looks to a recruiter or to a hiring manager if you've done nothing versus someone who's done a little bit of certification and even got some free experience. To me, it's like you're on another level.
I couldn't agree more. And just to continue with that, I mean, I give credit to my last workplace. They had a really good incentive in terms of giving you an educational budget. You would get time off to make sure that you can study as well. If you don't have something like that, I think you should just speak to your manager and put the benefits to your manager around what it is that you're looking at and what you're trying to do and what the benefits are. And most times Your manager should support you in terms of what they can do. If it's paying for a portion or
Yep.
supporting you with some time off, I would definitely put that to them to support you as well. Because, yeah, you're not wrong. These certificates do cost money, and there's ways that you can do them a bit cheaper than others, which we can talk about. But yeah, at the end of the day, they do cost money. They're not cheap to do,
Yeah.
and they cost you money every few years to renew them.
Yeah.
As I said, that's not cheap to me because I'm paying for that
That's
now to make sure that I stay up to date. But also, if you want to stay relevant and speak to people, there are so many groups that you can join as well. AISA, for example, I used to go to that in Sydney where I used to meet up, and that was a cybersecurity type meetup.
oh, great.
And that's where I met a lot of people. And there's also, they do webinars as well. And some of those webinars you can get CPE points for, which we talked about
Uh-huh.
CPE points.
Perfect.
So attending some of those webinars, you're meeting people, listening to key topics, staying up to date. You might not get a certificate. I mean, you're not going to get a certificate out of it, but it's going to at least support you to show that you're relevant and up to date. So there's definitely still groups you can get involved in like that if you want to stay up to date, stay relevant. Meetups are great. I'm in Newcastle at the moment, and there's meetups here in terms of IT. You can join those and then start going and meeting people. I think that we do like a monthly catch up, which is pretty cool as well. So there are things that exist if you just want to add to that you've got the experience, but you haven't got the cert. But I think also important to say that you're working towards whatever certificate that is. And you've got a timeline involved and this is how you're doing it. I think it's important to tell people that you've got a goal and you're working towards that.
Absolutely. That's a really good point because a lot of time when I interview people, I would say, are there any certs that you're thinking of doing in the next 6 months or 3 months? Anything that you're currently working on? Because it already shows, again, which area you're thinking of. Are you serious? Are you
Yep.
committed to an area? Are you committed to self-study and growth? And also what you just mentioned about meetups and other things that you might not get a certificate for, I would also say to people, put anything that you've done on your resume. Even if it's, I belong to a meetup, a monthly meetup for cybersecurity, we talk about whatever, put it on your resume. You've done a weekend boot camp that wasn't certified, put it on your resume. Like, show people what you've done. Otherwise, we're not mind readers. We don't know. So you've got to really put that
Yeah.
stuff on your resume.
Yeah, it's
Otherwise,
true.
nobody would know. Yeah.
You got a good point.
Yeah. Now, I want to talk a bit about how to study for these things because there are so many different ways. As you said, there's costs involved in doing it. It's probably like a platinum service where you can get the whole group certification, group workshops, group labs, or you can just do it on your own and then just sign up, pay for the exam, do the exam, and you're done. What do you say to that? Like, what are good for people in terms of how they should do this?
I'll try keep it as succinct as possible, but I'll give you an example to start with.
Yeah,
So
great.
I remember working at a prior workplace and I got put through an ITIL boot camp. Okay.
Right. Wow.
And if anyone does or doesn't know, ITIL is obviously a well-regarded certification in the industry. And I had to go, I think it was, I'm going to say it was 4 days. So I'm pretty sure it was 4 days. And you basically went every day, learnt as much as you could. And then on the fifth day, you had the exam
Wow.
and I failed. So
Oh,
that,
wow.
that didn't work for me. So,
Interesting.
and this was very early on in my career, right? So for me, ITIL was very new. I was trying
Yeah.
to learn the fundamentals. What is it? And because you got to understand as well, because it wasn't relevant to me, I didn't understand what it was. In
Yeah.
4 days, I had to work out what it was, what the exam was potentially going to ask me, all this new
Yeah.
terminology and lingo that I've never heard of before.
Yeah.
And then early on in my career, and then on the fifth day, I had to go for an exam of which I didn't have any practice questions. I didn't do any practice. And
Yeah.
then I failed. So, I mean, I felt pretty disappointed about that, to be honest. And then so I went and did it again to make sure that I got what passed and got it. But I did not enjoy that experience. And that put me off doing boot camps because boot
Interesting.
camps are really, really detailed and they're squashed into a few days. So
Pretty intense
yes.
process.
But if you said to me, hey, Aaron, I need you to do a boot camp on CISM, and let's pretend it's in a few years down the track.
Yeah.
And I've already got CISM. And if I let it lapse, I might opt for a boot camp potentially to go and get up to date really quick and then just do the exam because it's like I already
Gotcha.
understood it and I knew the concept. But if it's something that's like brand new to you and you don't know anything about it, again, everyone's so different, but the boot camp didn't work for me. I
Interesting.
find that what works for me, and again, I think it's really important, anyone listening, it's everyone's different. So don't take what I say as gospel. But I find for me, the best thing is getting videos. So I would either use Udemy because
Yep.
that I find that there's a lot of really good content on there. I would get the videos of what it is that I want to watch, but I will stress to anyone that those videos do not go into all of the detail. Those videos are sometimes just high level videos that are just giving you key concepts. So they're
Oh,
assuming that you know some of this stuff and that it's going to be relevant. So just be mindful the videos don't go into all of the detail, I have found. So then what I do is I get an ebook to complement the video. So
oh,
I watch the video and I would do the chapter and then I would go to the ebook, which you can download ebooks, get them on your Kindle, whatever you choose. Go and get the ebook for the certification that you want. And then read. I would find that I watched the video of whatever chapter it was, go to the ebook, read it, and then it kind of all clicks because you're reading
yeah.
it. But then you get all the detail. You can take your time. You can skim read them. You can read as much detail as you want. But that's how I would
Good
really
point.
get the detail. And usually with the videos, I do them at 1.2 times speed to try and just get through it a bit faster, depending
Right.
upon how fast the person is speaking. But I'm
Yeah.
trying to, yeah, again, this is all your time and energy that you're putting into this. So I try to just save a bit of time where possible. And then my last thing I would do is get a practice exam. So usually
Right.
the ebooks that I've purchased come with some form of practice exams that you can do yourself. Otherwise, there are various websites. I'm not going to say a specific one, but there are various websites you can get where you can pay as well for flashcards and they will quiz you on specific terminology in relation to whatever that certification is. So the way that I mean, me telling you that method is quite a cheap method because Udemy courses are usually under $30
Yeah. Can be
Australian.
$20. Yeah.
Yeah. Ebooks for the ones that I've paid for are easily under $100 easily. So anywhere around that, say $40 to $80 mark in between, which usually come with those practice exams. And then you can do that yourself, right? That obviously requires you to put in the effort yourself. And you need to be aware that you need to come up with a routine, which is obviously super important. So that's like one of the cheaper ways to do it. Obviously, paying for a boot camp, that's a lot more expensive because you're going on site, you're with a group of people. You can ask questions, but it can be a little bit daunting in terms of you might have to do that exam on the fifth day, which I did.
Yeah.
And
And you
it
might not
just
have
was
done any practice exams either doing that.
no. That's why it didn't work for me. But potentially, not always. Like maybe there are other boot camps, and I can't speak for them all, where you do all the course, and then as long as you get that certificate voucher, you can go do the certificate another day. As long as
Yeah.
that
Good
was the
point.
case, I'd probably recommend that. But I wouldn't say do it on the last day. You really need time because I made sure I put a lot of time and effort into doing practice exams to make sure I was familiar and ready to go so that I'm in that mindset of, okay, this is how I'm going to answer things. And it worked for me. So
Yeah.
I've done several certifications. I'm not going to say this year, last year, 2025. And I found that method I just told you was the best. And that worked for me. And I
Amazing.
will also say to even make that work, you really need to come up with a routine.
So really interesting. So when you sign up for an official course or certificate, does it come as well with the option to have videos by the company that provides it, or does that not happen?
Yes, it's all different. So, for instance, I'll mention two. So, CompTIA,
Uh-huh.
if you go to the CompTIA website, you pay for the actual exam voucher, is what I'm trying to
Right.
say. So, you
Gotcha.
need an exam voucher that you've paid
Yep.
for. They also will provide you, if you choose, and this is an additional cost now, this is where it can become more
Hmm.
expensive. You can pay for their practice exams,
Uh-huh.
you can pay for their ebook, and you can pay for their videos.
I see.
There is nothing wrong with that. And if your workplace is going to support you and money is not an issue, that's a fantastic route to go. But if you're a bit more conscious and you might not be getting funded for all of these things, you can go the other route that I just told you, which was you find your own videos on Udemy, you find your own ebooks, go on Amazon, get your Kindle, whatever you choose, get it, and then you go through it yourself. But yeah, you can get them all on those websites. Same as iSarka
Yep.
have all of their own content as well that you can pay for. But I would recommend if you want the exam voucher, go to the actual website of the provider. So if it's CompTIA or Cisco,
Yep. Do it officially, otherwise you could
go,
get tricked into paying for
yeah,
something that's not even certifying.
yeah, don't go on Google and then just Google CISM and try to do it through a third party website
Mm,
because you can't guarantee where that's going to go. If you want the real exam voucher, you should just go to the company that you want to get that
good point. Good
certificate
point.
through and pay that way.
And I've heard of sites like Pluralsight and things like that. Are they very, very reputable certification bodies? Is that how they work?
No, my understanding is that's still similar to like
Like
Udemy, where you
Udemy,
can
yeah.
go and get those videos. So probably one of the biggest reputable ones that I'm aware of is CBT Nuggets, if you've heard
Uh-huh.
of that. And they have a lot of videos on there and they're all through qualified instructors as well.
Okay.
So whereas I'll be honest with you, with Udemy, a lot of those videos, it may not necessarily be someone that's completely certified with
Yep.
what they're providing you. So you need to be very aware of what it is that you're paying for and
Definitely.
who the person is and what they're experienced in. You're kind of also paying for that, right? If you're getting
Mm,
someone that's really skilled versus not extremely skilled and what they're
definitely.
doing, you pay for what you get. But go and have a look what's out there.
Yeah. Okay. Love it. I think it's important for people to know their own study style
Yeah.
because a lot of the time you might be offered a certain style, but you might know that you are better doing it yourself at nighttime when it's quiet and then doing a couple of practice exams because you don't feel as rushed and you have more time to et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's important for people to really know how they best learn.
Yeah, and really, you'll find that yourself, right? Like
Yeah.
you'll know, hey, is this feeling right to me? Is it not feeling right? Am I going down the right path? I would
Yeah.
sometimes feel to myself, I'm getting a bit frustrated. Am I doing it the right way? Am I focusing on the right thing? Don't get multiple ebooks. Don't get multiple videos. If you start watching one set of videos on Udemy, you don't like it, get a refund and go for the next one. Like if you don't like the style of the instructor, I think it's really important you need to click with the way they're explaining things to you. And I honestly have done that where I've got a video, I didn't like it, I requested a refund and I went to the next instructor
Oh,
because it
wow. Okay.
worked better for me. I think that's important, but don't pay for two sets of videos and then watch two different sets because it's going to
Oh,
confuse you.
confusing. Yeah. I didn't know you could get refunds if you weren't happy.
Yeah, I mean, I've managed to
Okay.
get one. Yeah,
Great.
I think you got to do it very quick, but yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, great. Now let's chat a bit more about how you study and how you organize your time to study. Because obviously, if you've got a family and you've got work commitments and other commitments, it can be quite taxing. So, how do you go about that?
Well, the way that it didn't work for me, I'll tell you that to start with, was I tried to start doing it in the morning, but
Uh-huh.
I found that the biggest problem with doing it in the morning was I was tired naturally. So I would try to get up really early to do that before my daughter would wake up. And my daughter, who's a 4.5-year-old, would usually wake up at 6 o'clock. So I'd try to start doing things from 5 o'clock, of
Mm.
which I'm half asleep. And then if my daughter woke up early, it ate into my study time, which kind of threw things. And it just did not feel like it was working. So the morning thing died off very fast. I tried to do it in my lunch breaks at work. And I felt like that didn't work either because, you're working your job, you naturally need a bit of a break. And I'm
Yeah.
going from working to having a break, which was studying to then going straight back to work. So I felt like even though I've got my lunch breaks, that was also probably not a good idea. And then, you might get distracted. Someone's messaging you, something's popping up. I just felt like lunch breaks was not a good idea for me either.
Yeah.
So I found that the best thing to do was at nighttime for me when my daughter was asleep after we've done dinner. I'd come in my room, which I'm in now, and
Yeah.
I would just dedicate an hour to an hour and a half each night and I try to do that just during the week and have weekends off. I just do that during the week. I'd set a timer on my computer and I would make sure I've got focus mode turned on. So there is no notifications and
Good
I've
point.
left my phone outside because I don't want to get distracted.
Right.
And just set yourself a goal of, okay, I need to do chapter 1 and then just do all of your chapter one. Once you've done that, I go read the book, and then next week you do what you need to do next week. But just getting a routine that works for you. If you don't have kids, maybe it's completely different what will work for you. And maybe you get up even earlier than me, so mornings is good for you. But work out what will work. And for me, it was very obvious, like quite quickly, that it wasn't working with mornings because I
Yes.
wanted to give an hour to an hour and a half. And I was sometimes giving only 30 minutes to 40 minutes. And I thought, if I keep doing this is going to take a long time. So at night time, I was a bit more relaxed. Yeah, it was the end of the day and I was exhausted, quite frankly. I wanted to just go and,
Yeah,
I don't know,
that's
chill
right.
out. But
Yeah,
you have to do these things, and
yeah.
certificates are, yeah, you got to put in a lot of time and effort. So you're going to have to choose something.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have to be very disciplined and you have to set yourself a
Yeah.
routine and stick to it. Otherwise, before you know it, the week will go by and you won't have even opened the book.
Yeah, make sure you have a routine. Don't do it where it's like, oh, I'm just going to do 4 hours a week. I'll just work out where I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
That usually doesn't work.
No.
Try and stick to the same time every day. And once you're in that routine, you just naturally know. Like my wife would say to me, all right, Aaron, we're done dinner. I'll do the washing up. You have your hour and a half and go and do your study, right? So she knew, we understood what we were doing, and I got through it. So, I mean, I think it's really important because if you don't have your routine, what's really important? Don't start studying and then have a few weeks off and then start
Yeah,
studying
because you
again.
just
And then
that's it.
you will honestly start forgetting things because
Yep,
other things are popping up. Because you want to do it all super close together so that by the time you start doing your practice exams, you're ready to go. Because if you leave it 6 months to 12 months, you're going to have to start doing it again. So
absolutely. Even shorter. You leave it 3 months.
yeah. So
Yeah.
just really make sure, for anyone that wants to really get into this, set your
Yeah.
routine and just start doing it. And if you can't give that much time, just give less time, but just still make sure you're in a routine and it's
Yeah.
consistent.
And a little plug for a lot of MSPs out there that MSPs are really great as well because they get certified when their people are certified. So they will allow you to sometimes do a little bit of self study once a month, so many hours a month at work. They'll give you time to do that. They'll pay for your certs when you've passed. They'll give you cert bonuses and incentives when you achieve certain milestones. So MSPs are great from that point of view as well.
I think one thing I probably didn't cover that I'll say as well is, if you're listening to this and still thinking, hey, I still don't really understand where to start, I'll give a plug that there is a company, I already said, CBT Nuggets, right?
Ah, cool. Yeah.
And if you go on that website, they do have a careers matrix, right? And you can have a look if you want to be a network administrator, systems admin, DevOps, cloud administrator,
Yeah.
whatever it
I like
is,
that.
right? It shows you all of the certificates that exist within that
Very
category,
cool.
right? And
Very cool.
that's important to go and get a bit of an idea, because if I said, oh, I want to be a network administrator, but I'm saying, oh, I'm
Oh,
going to go do my
do it, yeah,
CISSP,
or do a VB script course. Like,
yeah,
totally irrelevant.
it's not relevant, right? So I would recommend you go and get an idea of what's relevant for the career path you want to take,
Yeah,
but
I
then
like it.
also having a look on job boards to get an understanding of what are people like. Go and have a look at whatever your job is that you want. Even if you're not in it, go and type it in on a job board and find out what are those jobs, what do they look like, and what are the requirements that they have. And if they're all asking for CompTIA Network Plus,
Yeah,
then that's giving you a pretty good indicator. And then
yeah,
obviously, if you're speaking to someone like Darren, Darren could say to you, hey, I can see that my clients are looking for CompTIA Network Plus. It's confirming to you that, hey,
yes.
that's the path you want to go. That's what all the other job boards are showing that people want. I think it's
Good point.
important that I should go and get that. That's sort of where I would start to get an idea, because, yeah, don't go and do certificates just for the sake of it. And if they're not even relevant to what you want to do, it is going to be a lot of time and money and effort. And it's also really important to note that with some of these certificates, like CISM, which I just did, that required me to have real life professional job experience, right? So I
Huh.
had to get my manager and colleagues' details so that
Oh,
if
wow.
they then asked to confirm, hey, did Aaron do
I
these
see.
types of things? They would get a confirmation from my colleagues to
I see.
confirm. So so I just want to call that out, because don't go and just do a certificate and then you get to the end and you've passed. But then when you actually apply to get this certification,
Yeah,
they are going to want to see that experience that you had, along with
Good point.
paying that fee. So make sure you do your research into that as well to make sure that it's relevant, because otherwise you might go do something that's not relevant. You've got no experience. Although you can say you've passed, which is great, you just might not actually get the certificate if you
Interesting.
don't meet all of those requirements that they have.
My God, it's a real minefield. Like, I didn't know it was so in depth.
Yeah, there's quite a bit. But to be fair, if you do go on their website, go and research what you want and
Good
look
to
at
know.
all the requirements before you just dive into it and make sure you're prepared.
So CBT nuggets.
Yes, cbtnuggets.com. That's a pretty good
Okay.
website. I've used that multiple times
Excellent.
to study material. I'm not sponsored. I've had to pay myself. But yes, it was quite helpful. And they've got a full page on careers.
Excellent. Good to know, because I'm always being asked, what should I do? This type of work, that. So I'll say, go check out CBT nuggets, because that'll
Yeah.
give you an idea. Great. All right.
Yeah.
So it kind of leads us into my other question, really, is on the flip side of all this, is if you're a manager, hiring manager, or even a recruiter potentially, looking at a resume with a whole list of certs from God knows what to most current, how do you ingest that? How do you think about what you're looking at? What kind of value do you assess or apply to those?
Yep. Well, I mean, I've definitely seen that before. So in lots of my roles, I've had to hire people. And I normally would focus on the why. So when I see a CV that's maybe stacked with multiple certs and maybe the experience doesn't add up, it can raise a bit of an alarm, right? I'd normally look for a logical story to understand why they did those certificates. Why did they get them? Are they following a specific career path?
Mhm.
And are those certificates maintained? Because as I said, you do need the job experience to actually
Yeah,
get some of these. You need to pay for them. You need to get those CPE credits as well. So I would also be aware of illegitimate providers that exist whereby you could potentially pay for a lot of these things. You're going to get a certificate, but it might not be through the legitimate of what
that's
it is that
right.
you're looking for. So I think really important to be aware of that as a thing that exists. The way I normally get around that as well, like these days, there's something called Credly. So that shows every time you've got a certification, like I just got one through ISACA, CISM, as I said, it shows a Credly badge on my LinkedIn, which is then connected to ISACA, which shows that I have passed and it's genuine. You
Gotcha.
could also contact ISACA if you wanted to confirm if I did pass as well. So don't be afraid to contact them if you're not sure if what I'm giving you is legitimate. But I also test the knowledge behind the certificate. So I find that asking questions really will help me to determine if they do know what they're talking about or if it was just one of those things that they just picked up. Like if you've got CISM, but you can't explain risk management, that's usually a pretty good red flag to me. But yeah, I suppose just be mindful of that because some people love going and getting certifications, and there's nothing wrong with that as well. So it's not a bad thing, but it's just get an understanding of why did they put so much time and effort into all of those things and where do they want to actually go? Because as I said, if you're trying to be a network administrator, but you've done all these cybersecurity courses and DevOps courses,
Yeah,
why does that
that's a
add
really
up?
good point.
Who paid for all of that? Because that's a lot of time and effort that you would have had to
Yep.
pay for. Do you have all the experience to actually get all of those?
Yep.
And are you maintaining all of those? So just get a bit of an idea because it's really important that a certificate is a proof of your knowledge, but it's not a substitute for it. You obviously really need that
Mm.
experience that goes with the certificate. Both of those is really good, but someone that just comes to you with a load of certificates and not that much experience, I'd just question what are they trying to achieve? Where are they wanting to go to make sure that if they're applying for a job, how can the job that you're going to be potentially providing them, how can it support their career growth of where they want to go if they're dabbling across multiple different certificates, right? I think
Yeah,
that's really important
I
to
agree.
get an
And as you
idea of that.
say, even the certificates tell a story. Like the resume tells a story,
Yeah,
but even the certs and the dates and the flow and the choices tell a story as well.
absolutely. Go and check them out. Like I've done multiple different ones for all different reasons, and there is a story
Yeah.
behind why. And that was following my career progression as well.
Yeah. Really, really good point. Love it. Love it. Amazing, Aaron. Well, I mean, it's been an incredible deep dive into certification. And I didn't realize it was such a complex process. Like I thought you just do the cert and then you're good for ages. But
Yeah,
you've got
fair
to
enough.
actually maintain it. You've got to spend money. You've got to spend time. You've got to do the CPE credits. I didn't know that you had to do all this. Wow.
Yeah. It's a bit of a big business out there, Darren.
It is a big business, I know. And that's why it's so important to really take your time to choose wisely and not just go and do everything and spend all this money, but just find the one or two that you think are going to be most relevant to the next stage in your career. Otherwise, you could be wasting a lot of time and energy.
Exactly. And naturally, it's going to be a lot easier if you choose something that's already in the related field
Yeah,
that you're looking for, because you're naturally already going to understand aspects of it. You're going to be interested in it. It's going to be easier from that front. Whereas if it's ain't completely left field and you got no experience in it, I still recommend you go for that if you want to pivot and change. But yeah, that's obviously going to be a lot more difficult and a lot of time that you need to potentially put in. But a lot of people that might be listening to this might already easily be able to pass one of these exams because they've got real world experience. It's just you
absolutely.
need to make sure you apply that. Just read how they potentially want to ask you questions in that exam so that when you apply yourself and do the exam, you can then pass and get the certificate to show that you've got that experience as well with as the
Yeah.
certification.
That's actually a really good point. Like while you were saying that, I was thinking to myself, if someone's been doing something, say they've been a systems engineer for 10 years, working on particular technologies that are very relevant, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe we'll call it even 3 years because obviously technology changes so fast. If they go then and get registered to do a cert, do they have to study less, or do you think it's still very important for them to go through it to like a fine tooth comb because they might not know everything?
I would say that they potentially may get through it a lot faster because they already understand a lot of those concepts. They've got a lot of experience and it might make sense. But where it does get a little bit tricky is these exams ask specific sets of questions and they've got a way of doing it. So
Mm,
when I just did the CISM exam, for example, every single question always has two that are completely wrong and then
right.
two that are always nearly correct.
Really close. Yeah.
Yes. So it's a multiple choice exam out of it's 150 questions and each question's got four potential choices. So even though you might know or you've got all the experience, you know how it works in your industry, in your workplace, these exams as well do ask on best practice. So you've got to remember
Mm,
that even though
great
at
point.
your workplace you might do it a certain way and you know how it's done at your workplace,
That's a good
these
point.
exams are based on best practice. Even if that best practice sometimes is not even able to be achieved at your workplace, it's always on best practice. And you've got
Interesting.
to understand the mindset that they want you to understand. So CISM, which I just did, it was in the lens of a manager. So it wasn't a technical person. It was more of a manager mindset. Whereas if you do the CISSP, there is a lot more technical aspect to that over the CISM exam. So all of these exams will have a bit of a mindset as well that they want you to apply, and that's what you're
Gotcha.
going for. So although I do think if you've got a lot of that experience, it will be a lot easier, but you still need to just get a grasp of what mindset do they want you to have and how
Yep.
do they ask their questions, because their goal is to make it difficult and it will trick
Yes.
you. So you
Yeah.
got to get, that's why the practice exams are so good, because you do that, you start getting in the habit of looking at what are those two
The
incorrect ones.
nuances.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it really tricks you a bit. And you've really got to start thinking about, yeah,
Mm.
what you learned. So if that helps with that answer.
That's a really good point. So as I'm learning, even if you've done something for ages, do the practice exams. At least do that because then it'll open your eyes to how you should be thinking and if there's anything that you need to brush up on.
That's it.
Yeah, really good. Well, Aaron, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time.
No
I've
worries.
learned a lot. I think this has been really valuable because I've never done a deep dive into certs before. And this is just amazing how much there is under the hood when you lift it up.
Not a light topic.
No, especially these days. And I think IT is probably very heavily certified and probably
Yeah,
one of the more complex certified industries around.
it absolutely is.
So there's so much to do. So it is, people can get a bit confused. So really appreciate you unpacking that for us. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with before we finish up?
I would say probably the last thing I'd say is just make sure if you're not sure what you're doing, go and have a look and do some research. I probably made a bit of a mistake myself where I was in a bit of a role. I was comfortable. I wasn't looking at certifications and I kept going along and I was
Yeah.
happy with what I was doing. And then it was a bit of a wake up call to me when I wanted to pivot and make a bit of a change and look at a different role. That's
Yeah.
when I realized, hey, I have been left behind a little bit. Even though I had all the experience and I was ready to go, I felt like I just didn't have that certification to prove a point, which is what people were looking for. So
Mm,
if you're listening to this and thinking, yeah, I don't really need a certification right now, I'm happy with my job, I'm all good, I think you should always just think about your future, even though you don't know where you're going to go. And it's important to live in the present. I think just think about, yeah, what it is that you can do now. If there's a certification you can do to just help you with your upskilling and your existing career, do it because you don't know
love it.
how it's going to help you or where it's going to take you. Yeah, I think that's probably the thing I'd leave people with because I felt like I just left that a little bit too long. But then
Yeah.
I looked at what was out there and I started again.
Yeah. Really good advice. Well, thank you very much again. I really appreciate you taking the time. Everyone out there, I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did, or as we did, because I know we have. And I wish everybody an amazing 2026. This will be out very, very soon, so you'll be able to enjoy it. And look forward to seeing you on our next episodes of Soul Searching, the Soul Recruitment Podcast. Thanks again, Aaron.
Thanks for having me, Darren. Appreciate it.
Pleasure. Cheers, guys.
See ya.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Soul Searching, the Soul Recruitment Podcast. If you'd like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@soulrecruitment.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.